After an enthusiastic beginning, the Obama campaign seemed to hit a wall. 8 months after he announced his candidacy in Springfield, and on the eve of the primaries, Obama still trailed Hillary Clinton by nearly 20 points in the national polls, and people were still predicting that she could wrap up the nomination by the middle of February.
Do you support drivers?
To begin with, Obama's performance in the early Democratic debates in the fall of 2007 lacked inspiration. He seemed flat, professorial, and wonkish.
You know what Japan does with Chinese when it comes to, for example, food importation?
No.
Obama's chief political strategist, David Axelrod, was aware of the deficiencies.
I think he was trying to figure out how to be a candidate at the beginning. And I think there was a period of time when it was a little like a shock to his system. And I remember him saying to me, I'm going to learn how to be a great candidate.
Thank you so much, everybody. It is wonderful.
The first real test would come in Iowa. The campaign knew from the beginning that to have a chance of winning the Democratic nomination, they would have to defeat Senator Clinton there and shatter the myth of her inevitability.
I want to be the President of the United States of America.
An extraordinary speech at the Iowa Democratic Party's Jefferson Jackson dinner made a huge impression on state leaders and helped him recruit thousands of volunteers.
Somebody stood up for me when it was risky. And because that somebody stood up, a few more stood up. And then a few thousand stood up. And then a few million stood up. And standing up with courage and clear purpose, they somehow managed to change the world. That's why I'm running Iowa.
I'm just calling to see if you intend to go to caucus tonight, sir.
As they would do over and over again in the caucus states, Obama's staff simply out-organized and outmaneuvered the Clinton campaign. And he won a state that was 95% white by a comfortable margin.
They said this day would never come. But on this January night, at this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do.
Obama's Iowa win had gotten everyone's attention. The strategy had paid off. I remember a conversation I had with Senator Obama in Boston, I think, and he told me that John F. Kennedy spent 60 days campaigning for president, and that he had spent 80 days in Iowa.
83, but who's counting?
It was huge for you.
Yeah, it was everything.
David Plouffe was Obama's campaign manager and field general.
And I think almost everybody in the political community thought Senator Clinton was going to be the nominee. And if she had won Iowa, she would have been. But once we won Iowa, people took a second look, and it enabled us to really gather the head of steam we needed to go pass through that gauntlet, of primaries in January and February.
After Iowa, all sorts of things began to fall into place. The campaign began raising nearly $1 million a day, much of it from small contributors. They hired a staff of 700 to complement hundreds of thousands of volunteers.
You guys are the wind beneath my wings.
The Iowa victory had helped convince blacks that Obama might actually have a chance, and he began to pick up key endorsements like Ted and Caroline Kennedy.
Yeah, we made enormous strides just in the last few weeks.
1 year after Obama's speech in Springfield, it was now a two-candidate race.
I am ready to lead, so let's...
Super Tuesday, with 22 states voting, had been the day that many thought Senator Clinton would lock up the nomination. But the real campaign was just beginning.
Holy cow. Exit poll from Connecticut.
We were at Obama headquarters in Chicago with David Axelrod when the first exit polls began rolling in.
Illinois 69-29.
The early exuberance was tempered somewhat by losses in California, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. Later that night, we were invited to the candidate's hotel suite where we watched the returns with his family.
So what do you think?
Split decision, which is what we had talked about.
You feel like you got the momentum?
You know, I feel like everywhere we go, the longer we're in this race, the stronger we get.
Before the week was over, he would win 3 more states: Louisiana, Nebraska, and Washington.
Our time has come.
I had to think about this long and hard at the beginning of this process and say, are you deluding yourself? And I decided I might just be able to pull it off. And so a year later, it turns out that the jury's still out, but we seem to be stirring things up pretty good.
Look at this crowd.
Following Super Tuesday, Obama reeled off 10 straight victories and built a substantial lead in delegates. But the contest was moving now into the big states like Ohio, Texas, and Pennsylvania, where Senator Clinton had the advantage. In Ohio, she had the support of a popular governor and the state party machinery, while Obama had to rely heavily on volunteers.
So you assume the people honking are people that like you?
Well, when they give you a thumbs up, they like you. When they give you the finger, it's a thumbs down. So I'm pretty sure those are international symbols.
In Ohio, the issues were trade agreements and jobs, but in Chillicothe, people told us that both race and gender would be hidden factors in southern Ohio, that many blue-collar workers here wouldn't vote for a woman and others would never vote for a black. And Senator Obama had another problem, a malicious campaign against him that surfaced in a number of our interviews.
Who are you going to vote for?
I'm leaning towards Obama. There's a couple issues with him I'm not too clear on.
Which issues?
Well, I'm hearing he doesn't even know the national anthem. He wouldn't use the Holy Bible. He's got his own beliefs with the Muslim beliefs, and a couple issues that bothers me at heart.
Mm-hmm. You know that's not true.
No. This is what I've been told.
One of the things that we found in southern Ohio, not widespread, but something that popped up on our radar screen all the time, people talking about it, this idea that you're a Muslim.
Right. Did you correct them, Steve?
I did correct them.
There you go.
Where's it coming from?
You know, this has been a systematic email smear campaign that's been going on since actually very early in this campaign. Clearly, it's a deliberate effort by some group or somebody to generate this rumor. Have never been a Muslim, am not a Muslim. These emails are obviously not just offensive to me, somebody who's a devout Christian who's been going to the same church for the last 20 years, but it's also offensive to Muslims because it plays into, obviously, a certain fear-mongering there.
As primary day drew near, this photo of Obama in ceremonial African tribal dress during a visit to Kenya was featured prominently on the internet and attributed to people in the Clinton campaign. Senator Clinton disavowed any knowledge of it.
You don't believe that Senator Obama's a Muslim?
Of course not. I mean, that's, that there is no basis for that. I take him on the basis of what he says, and, there isn't any reason to doubt that.
You said you take Senator Obama at his word that he's not a Muslim. You don't believe that he's a Muslim?
No, why would
implying,
I? No, there is nothing to base that on, as far as I know.
It's just scurrilous.
Look, I have been the target of so many ridiculous rumors that I have a great deal of sympathy for anybody who gets, smeared with the kind of rumors that go on all the time.
Senator Clinton won in Ohio and eked out a victory in the Texas primary. But the question of race, which the Obama campaign had long sought to avoid, was about to move center stage in a run-up to the Pennsylvania primary.
Not God bless America, God damn America.
The videotaped rantings of Obama's former pastor, Jeremiah Wright, looped endlessly on television and the internet, produced the candidate's first crisis and a pivotal moment in the campaign.
We didn't review all of the tapes of Jeremiah Wright as we should have. And as a result, we were kind of caught flat-footed on some of these tapes.
Senior advisor Anita Dunn called it the low point of the campaign.
That was a terrible weekend.
Yeah, and the only one who was calm was Obama.
Yeah.
The candidate called his aides and told them he wanted them to clear some time on his schedule.
He said, you know what, I'm going to make a speech about race and talk about Jeremiah Wright in the perspective of the larger issue. And he said, neither people will accept it or I won't be president of the United States. But at least I'll have said what I think needs to be said.
The profound mistake of Reverend Wright's sermons is not that he spoke about racism in our society. It's that he spoke as if our society was static, as if no progress had been made, as if this country, a country that has made it possible for one of his own members to run for the highest office in the land and build a coalition of white and black, Latino, Asian, rich, poor, young, and old is still irrevocably bound to a tragic past.
You know, it was a moment of real leadership. At that moment, I think, when he gave that race speech in Philadelphia, people saw a president.
In the end, Obama would lose Pennsylvania too, but victories in North Carolina, Mississippi, Oregon, and Montana would give him an insurmountable lead in delegates for the Democratic presidential nomination. In early June, what once seemed impossible had become part of history.
In a moment, from the convention to victory in November.